Hey, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my Leica talks. All things Leica, or Leica-like. Sometimes I deviate, as you've seen. Today I'll talk about, this is my favorite Barnack Leica. This is the Leica IIIf with a 50mm accessory viewfinder. I'm a fan of the 3G because it's got a big bright viewfinder. They made finally, in this whole series of Barnacks, they started going to a bigger viewfinder. But that one I use without an accessory. But this one is a nice, clean 50mm Summitar lens, f2, fast, and the viewfinder is what makes it for me. Because even though I can see the whole viewfinder in this little viewfinder window, and even though I can focus quickly and I can see that viewfinder window, if I'm shooting street or if I'm shooting friends and I did focus on here, then when it comes time to shoot, this is like looking through that window that's as bright as like a Rolly 3.5, a Rolly 35, the little point and shoot. It's just one big giant viewfinder. And for a 50mm lens, it doesn't matter that it's slightly off axis. So is this. And it has parallax lines in case you end up shooting close to something. It shows you where you don't want to cut anything off, stay inside those lines. But this is, I think, less expensive than the 3G. Definitely quality lens in wonderful shape with a self-timer. And here's my rule about self-timers. I never use them because I can never trust that the self-timer is working. And if it isn't working and then it doesn't trigger, now I've got a camera that doesn't work. And I know it works when I'm shooting it regularly. So my rule is don't use a self-timer unless you absolutely must, because there are times when the self-timers fail. And now you have a camera that is kind of stuck and needs to go in for service. I'm a fan of using these cameras, and I put them in my pocket a lot. I keep them with me a lot as my go-to cameras. I'll bring other Leicas. I'll bring a camera in a Billingham case with a bigger lens, like a 51.4. I'll bring a 90 with me too in that same bag. But if I'm not bringing anything else, this will be the only thing I bring. This is what I like to have for small size, compactability, recesses down. There it goes. Put a lens cap on it and then put it in my pocket. It's very, very easy. At first I was like a little bit concerned, if I put this lens cap on, will that get scratched up or will it get dusty? And I'm like, it does get a little dusty, but it's not a big deal. I'm not going to worry about it. It's replaceable. I can always get another one. The problem isn't much of a problem. These cameras were used a lot back in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, and they're still working. The fact is, try to use it up. You can't use it up. Cameras that have been going for a long time will keep going. Service them when they stop working, use them when they are working. For me, if the shutter speeds are working from a 1/15 of a second up to 1,000, that's my sweet spot. That's where I use them. If I shoot at 1/8 of a second and it doesn't work, okay, I might not be shooting it at 1/8 of a second much. I've had cameras where the slow shutter speeds would just hang up, like a 1/2 a second would just stay open. And so other people were trying to go send them in for service. I go, well, I could just use bulb and I could time a 1/2 a second. I go, okay, let's shoot this. I go, click, click. That's about a 1/2 a second. And I can time a full second. Let's do a full second. Are you ready? Click, click. That seems like about a full second. You can kind of guesstimate. If you want to shoot at a 1/2 a second and you don't have the 1/2 second shutter speed working, just set it on bulb and hold still. Hold it open. You can feel what a full second feels like. So make your 1/2 a second a little bit smaller. But if it's working from a 1/15 of a second to 1,000, it's a working camera. Keep it with you. Use it. Don't baby it. Don't protect it. Don't be so worried about it. Use these cameras. They're meant to be used. Make photographs. Document our worlds and make prints for people so that they actually exist as photographs. That's the key. We have to make photographs. These are the tools that make it so that we get to do it. This is in such nice shape. I'm, not worried about messing it up so much. Ones that I have where they're missing leather, those I'm somewhat worried about because I'm considered, well, if the leather gets snagged on something in my coat pocket, it might tear it some more, but if it does, it'll get replaced. But this one's in wonderful shape. This is my go-to. It's got a clear viewfinder if I didn't have this with me, and sometimes I'll put this in my shirt pocket and put this in my jeans pocket, but most of the time I'll just carry this. I like the little, I think it's a little Luigi wrist strap, and I'll just carry it like this, and it's fine to go. I can let it go and it's not going to go anywhere. And that's an easy camera to take when I just want to go out, not feel like I'm going to be bringing a big camera presence to a little indoor party, a little bit of a smaller gathering, or just to out shoot street. If I want to go do maybe some street portraits, if I'm going someplace where I know there'll be some characters. That's what this is good for. Nikon IIIf, I get my wrist out of it. It's a 3F red dial, which means it's got those red portions inside the part on the far right. I think that they made a black dial and a red dial. I don't really understand. There's also some red numbers down below the shutter speed ring, and those red numbers are flash synchronization for different size flash bulbs. They're not really that pertinent today, but if you want to use old flash bulbs, that's what that's for. I think that's what the R red dial really was about. It had this red area and it had red numbers. And somebody can comment, tell me, they probably know more about those than I do. I don't use flash with these cameras typically. I'm just going out and shooting them. You could say a Summicron's a better lens than a Summitar, but that's what this one had with it. And it works perfectly fine. I like the sharpness of it. If it's not broke, I say, don't fix it. And that one's a lot less expensive than if it had a Summicron on it. It probably would have been a 3F I couldn't afford because the lens was too expensive. But this one came with a Summitar. All right, that's today's photography talk. If you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you could support, hit the Patreon. Thanks so much for all my supporters. I'll be back next time. We'll talk more Leica photography. As always, here's to good light.